Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I got some new content for you. I'm hoping that you took the time to watch the unboxing for my brand new Tamron 70-180 F2.8 for the Sony E-Mount. I recently sold my F4 version of the Sony. Great lens, very fast, very sharp, one of the sharpest lenses I've ever used. I believe it was like 1500 brand new, but for a lot of the events and stuff that I shoot, including portraits and headshots, that 2.8 I think is really gonna make a difference. And to shell out 2,600 bucks for the G Master, you know, the 2.8, I really don't see that happening. I basically have to sell a damn kidney to get that, and I'm not all about that. So, I did the unboxing. I told you I'd have a review coming soon. My wife recently had carpal tunnel surgery, so I haven't been able to really get out. I've been helping take care of her, and I've got a 3-year-old running around the house. So we got a little break today. It's been raining for about the past 2 days nonstop. So we ran out on the golf course behind the house, and I tried to take some photos with it. You know, the full zoom range from 70 all the way to 180. I did some videos, I did some 4K video, did some 1080 video. I'd really like to go over that. The photos are almost straight out of the camera. All I did was add a little bit of a dehaze to it and a little bit of saturation because it was kind of foggy and hazy and nasty looking outside. But we're going to look over that. I'm going to talk a little bit as we're doing it, and just to give you my impressions on the focus speed, the tracking, the sharpness, and I'll talk a little bit more as we look at the photos and video how it compared to my F4. So without further ado, let me go ahead and shut my trap and let's jump into that video. Now in this first clip here, I just kind of wanted to show the full zoom range. I shot it at f2.8. This is at 4K at 30 frames per second. Just wanted to show something kind of medium, real close, real far. I had the Sony A7 III set to fast and responsive on the autofocus. And it looks like it's pretty sharp. It does a pretty damn good job of jumping in and out of focus on the different subjects. Center leaf went off a little bit on some of these. It locked on, you know, a little bit of it. I didn't have it on center lock, or what do they call it, the expandable spot. It was on zone, so I had a pretty big square to choose from. So I grabbed onto the grass a little bit, grabbed onto the leaf, but it catches on to my daughter really well, it catches on to the trees in the background, and overall I think I did a pretty good job on the full zoom range. Okay, here we're gonna get into some action. We're going at 180mm f4. This is also 4K 30 frames per second. And it does a pretty darn good job. So I have her start where you can see her whole body into the frame. It does a decent job of tracking between her face and her scooter. In some of these frames, it may jump back just a hair between her face and the scooter. Definitely when she looks down and her hair is kind of bouncing back and forth, it might grab onto the scooter for a second. But overall, I think it's doing a pretty darn good job. So then we jump to the 70mm. Same thing, f4, 4K 30 frames a second. So this is at 70mm. Got her coming towards the camera. The reason I have her going towards the camera, because in my experience, anything directly toward or away from the camera is a lot harder to focus on than side-scrolling left or right. I took some also at 1080 and upscaled it to fit the 4K framing here. This one is done at 180mm, also f4. And drop a little bit into slow motion so you can see that as well. And then we go into the same test, upscaled again, but at 70mm. We'll do a little bit of slow motion on this one too. Then I did a variable zoom at f2.8. This is 4K 30. So I tried to get all the way in at 180 and zoom out to 70 and just see how it works tracking her as she goes by. Overall, I'm pretty impressed. Does it work any different compared to my F4? It's hard for me to say. Without having it here side by side to do the exact same tests, honestly, I don't feel any different so far. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the photos. I shot high frame rate on these. And this is at 180mm, 2.8, just catching her in action. You can see that on a couple of frames there, it jumps between the scooter and her face. And on a couple of them, she looks down, which kind of makes that difference a little bit. But they look pretty sharp when they're locked on, whether it's to her scooter or to her face. Now, I feel like just in the short test that I've done, I haven't shot sports, you know, it's just my daughter on her scooter. But after this initial burst of photos, I feel like the Sony F4 did a slight better job. But again, I don't have it here with me right now to do a side-by-side comparison. You know, if I would have never used the F4, would I still be impressed by this lens? Yes, definitely. I think it did a great job, especially compared to some of the older Tamron lenses and the ones I've had from Nikon. But right now, it's holding up pretty darn well, and I'd like to go out and shoot some sports with it and see how good it can do. So here, let's do the same frame rate again, but at 70mm F2.8. This also does a really good job. I didn't have anything go on in this test that I say I really was disappointed in. It all did pretty well. Does a more expensive lens, does the G Master do better or the F4 do better? Maybe a little bit slightly. For anything not, you know, it's not sports, your corporate events, weddings, regular things like that. Are your clients going to notice any difference? Or are you going to have any trouble shooting that stuff? Hell no. This is perfectly fine for 99.9% of all uses. Let's jump into the next set. This should be a full zoom range from 180 all the way to 70. One thing that I noticed on my 28-75 Tamron when shooting basketball, I would have this problem to where if I was, let's say, zoomed in all the way at 75 and you got the guy coming down the lane towards the basket and you're trying to zoom out to 28 as quick as you can and take photos. When I was shooting that high frame rate, as I would turn the zoom barrel, it would kind of freeze up. It wouldn't track and let me actually click the shutter while I was spinning that zoom barrel. And I noticed it does not have that problem on this one. I purposely tried it and it works fine. As long as you can turn that zoom barrel and got that high frame rate on, it was still firing off the photos. Here's a couple of portraits I took at 70mm F2.8. They look pretty darn sharp to me. Let's zoom in a little bit on it and take a look here. And let's do the same thing again here at 180mm. Here we go. Looks pretty darn good, folks. Okay, in conclusion, let's start with the autofocus speed. I think it locks on pretty darn quick when it comes to photos. In that test I showed of just going back and forth between like my daughter and the leaf and the grass and the trees in the background. Also had the A7III set to fast responsive. I think it was pretty quick. It's real nice and smooth. Didn't seem to be kind of jittery. Whatever it wanted to lock on to, it went there pretty quickly and it held on pretty well. Now the tracking for the photos, it was, I would say, over 90 percentile locking on where I wanted it to be. It did jump back and forth on a couple of frames on video and photos between like the scooter and her handlebars, in between her face. But overall, I think anybody would be pleased with the accuracy results I got on that. It seems better than the older 28-75. As far as comparing it to the F4 that I used to have, it may be the tiniest bit slower than the F4 as far as how quick it can lock onto something. I don't have it here next to me to compare side by side, but I think it was definitely in the same class. I don't have the G Master, nor do I have very much experience with the G Master, but I'd have to guess that if that's even faster than this, it can't be that much faster. It's got to be a side-by-side test. I don't think you can use one, then pick up the other one and use it days or weeks later and immediately tell the difference. Now, sharpness. I think this thing is pretty darn sharp. The F4, I've said in some other videos, is one of the sharpest lenses I've ever used in my life. The G Master I know is also very sharp. I've heard of some models of the G Master having back focus issues, but I've only rented it a few times and I didn't have that problem. It was very sharp though. Now, is this as sharp as the F4? It's hard to tell. Again, I don't have it here side by side, but do I have any complaints after zooming in and looking 2:1, 3:1? Zero complaints. It locks onto the eye, locks onto the face. Everything seems to be really sharp with this lens. I don't have any regrets to this point stealing my F4 and using this. I'm looking forward to having that low light capability shooting the 2.8, especially with the focusing distance. It focuses really close, a lot closer to the F4 in the 2.8 G Master versions. It's real light, as I talked about in the unboxing. It's pretty darn small. I don't like the barrel creep on it. as you zoom in and out, but for the price and for the capabilities, I can live with that. The first part of this video is actually, my intro was me filming with this lens at 70mm here in my studio. So if you have any comments, any questions, or if you have any experience of your own that you'd like to share, if you've used this lens, if you've done photos, if you've done video, whatever it is, please let me know what you thought about it. If you have any suggestions for me to do another test, please let me know about it. I'm always looking for new ideas. I'm in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. If there's anybody around this area that sees the video and you want to link up and do some tests together, let me know. Let's make it happen. I'm ready to get out and do some more stuff with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't leave anything out, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. I'm ready to keep creating for everybody. So thanks a lot. Catch y'all next time.